Going to drag it out. They're going to find ways to manipulate it, and I guess we just have to do a better job. Kay does a great job. I tell you what, I bless God that I found her, because she is not afraid to ask questions.
Just remind you you're under oath, but I'd like to ask you whether or not those dash cam recordings contain a date, signature, and a time stamp, as well as a listing of the police car or unit and the officer.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Do the dash cam videos typically contain a date stamp, a time, a unit, or an officer's name in the video?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell us why there was no date stamp or time on the video shown to Mr. Helbig yesterday by your executive secretary?
What you reviewed yesterday was a copy. The best we could do to copy our in-car camera system to a medium that could be viewed by you, and that was our best attempt to copy.
So if the originals had date and time stamps on them, how did those date and time stamps fall off of the copies which were given to us for viewing yesterday?
I'm not sure they did.
Did you review the...
They're embedded in that copy of the video reviewed yesterday.
And how do you know that?
Because I viewed them.
And did you actually see them appear on the screen,
Yes.
superimposed on the video?
Yes.
Okay, so you did review them prior to allowing us to view them yesterday?
Yes.
And is your testimony that there were date and time stamps on them at the time that you reviewed them?
Yes.
I'm doing this for America. I'm doing this for every parent, every grandparent. We should have rights to ask questions, but not just that. We ought to be able to get the truth. We ought to be able to walk into an office and say, I'd like to see these documents. What are they hiding? This is serious stuff. Serious. Because who else wants a Sandy Hook and Air community? Nobody. It's got to stop. It's got to stop here, and it's got to stop now.
Absolutely, and I want to thank you for your time, Wolf, and I want to thank you from a patriot to a patriot for your great and hard work.
Thank you.
And folks, again, you ask the real questions, you get ignored completely. It's unreal, really is. Truth is definitely stranger than fiction. And this is Dan Bedandi for INFOWARS.com.
Production. What does this have to do with documents?
Well, we have never received those inspection reports, although they are the subject of this appeal.
Now, in the last segment, you saw the interview that Dan Bedandi did with Wolfgang Halbig at the first FOIA hearing, a hearing that took 19 months to get. A lot of stonewalling, a lot of intimidation. Joining us now is Wolfgang Halbig. Thank you for joining us, Wolfgang. Before we get into what you learned at the FOIA hearing, give the viewers an idea of what it took to even get to the point where they would answer questions from you, because it wasn't the sort of thing where you just said, I'd like to get this information, and they said, sure, here it is. It was pretty much a struggle, wasn't it?
Absolutely. And it's been 19 months to finally get to Hartford, Connecticut, and have a chance to tell your side of the story and have them show cause as to why they're intentionally refusing to release documents under the Connecticut FOIA request. If I were not a national school safety consultant, I get hired by superintendents and school board members to come into their school districts and help them design safe school plans. And I wouldn't be asking these questions. And for them to intentionally violate their own Connecticut FOIA laws, they're refusing, and these are school board policies that they're even refusing to respond to.
Yes. So for 19 months, you've been trying to get this. They stonewalled you. They threatened you. But now you finally get to the FOIA hearing. Tell us what you discovered at this first FOIA hearing, because there's another one that's coming up on June 3rd. But tell us what you learned on this particular one.
Well, what's really, I need to let you know, I wouldn't be there had it not been for people from all over the country who believed in me and my mission And they need to know that when they see me in that chair at the FOIA hearing, if it weren't for them, I would not be there. And David, I got to tell you, I've never, ever, after we issued subpoenas for people to be our witnesses, to show up and verify that those documents exist, the attorney for the school board, the city of Newtown, and the Newtown Police Department, they told our witnesses not to show up. Now, when have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, that's pretty arrogant. It's pretty arrogant.
That is
It's
arrogant.
amazing.
It's flagrant. It's misuse of his office. He's an officer of the court. How does he tell my witnesses not to show up for this hearing? And you know what? They didn't show up.
Wow, that's amazing. So is that why you're having the second FOIA hearing, so that you can get to these witnesses who did not show up?
Well, we did have a couple show up, and that's what makes it even more difficult. Why did they allow the police chief to show up? Why did they allow the director of facilities show up, but then cancel the other three, which I found extremely important, especially to the FOIA request?
Now, one of the things that you were able to get was a video showing things that happened at the school, but one of the things that was interesting was that it had a missing timestamp. The reason they put that timestamp on, of course, is so people know that the footage is not edited. Nevertheless, there was a missing timestamp. Tell us about that.
Well, you know, I've been asking for this for over a year. I requested from the Newtown Police Department the dash cam videos of Lieutenant Cinco, Lieutenant Seabrook. Those are the two that I was really concerned about. And David, when they stuck us in that little room at the Newtown Police Department, they gave me a DVD. They took off the date, the timestamp, and the real time. I mean, can you imagine? You don't alter and tamper with evidence.
Yeah.
These are public records. You can't tamper with it. And then when we asked the police chief at the hearing under oath, he said that when he watched those dash cam videos, the date and timestamps were there. You could see it. So the question beckons, who has the authority to tell someone to remove and alter and tamper with those official records?
Absolutely. And of course, that really begs the question, are these edited? Because that would be the only reason I could think of that they would want to remove the timestamps.
Well, I totally agree with you. I think this thing needs to be investigated by Congress. I mean, David, there are so many lies by Connecticut state troopers, and now we got the dash cam footages that are altered and tampered with. And what's the reason for it? See, this is why I think people need to wake up. They need to get angry. They need to get angry. They need to be subscribers to your shows. They need to get involved. I'm going to tell you something. We caught 2 people at that first hearing committing perjury. David, listen to this word. The police chief, Mike Kehoe, committed perjury under oath on that first hearing. The director of facilities, I can tell you this, being the former cop, they committed perjury, and I cannot wait to go back June the 3rd to finish them off.
What did they do when you say they committed perjury? Tell us about it.
Well, we're going to file perjury charges because think about this. When a police chief receives the first 911 call, okay, I don't know if people listen to it, they remember it was a woman saying shots fired inside the school. Now, I asked the police chief, is this call for service a legal document? I showed him a document. Is this a legal official police document? He said, yes. I showed him a copy of the incident log. Is this an official police log? Is this official? Is the truth, the whole truth? He said, yes, it is. David, they never even showed shots fired inside the school. The first call they listed as an unwanted person, and they dispatched 22 police cars to an unwanted person call. That is just an outright lie, and nowhere, I'm going to say this again, nowhere in that police report, both of them, will you ever see shots fired inside the school. Why? He's committing perjury.
That's amazing. Now, is that the same log that you, there was also a check-in log, or is that a different log that you can see?
That's a completely different log.
Tell us about that.
Well, you know, everybody has seen this Gene Rosen standing out there being photographed by the national news media. Well, behind him is this huge traffic sign. It says, everyone must sign in. Well, you know, I've been asking this FOIA question, who's everyone? I mean, think about it. What if you don't sign? Are there consequences if you don't sign in? I mean, it says everyone must sign in. So that's a directive, I believe. And if you don't follow those directives, are you going to be arrested? And so I requested under the FOIA laws a copy of the sign-in log. And for 19 months, David, I have yet to get it.
So they won't give you a copy of the sign-in log, which we see a video showing that that's mandatory. When you look at the 9/11 log, there's nothing about shots fired. It's amazing, Wolfgang. I mean, if they're telling people the whole purpose of government and the whole purpose of the police, of course, is to protect us, to make us safe. That's your purpose as well as a school security consultant. If they're not going to tell people what happened there, they've got a very different agenda. And it's amazing to me that they would let this go that they would push this for 19 months and get to this point. Tell us some of the other things that you found in the FOIA request.
Well, the same thing. When I had the police chief, Mike Kehoe, under oath, I asked him a question. Who contacted the Connecticut State Trooper 1? Because I had a copy of their flight log. And he stated under oath, David, that they never, ever had any communication, he or his department, with the state trooper. But when you read the flight log from the pilot, his name is McLean, Sergeant McLean, he states that the reason that they were on this mission is to assist the Newtown Police Department in searching for suspects in the woods. Mm-hmm. Now, tell me what that would mean if you were to read that.
And of course, we saw some video of some people that were running through the woods, and they pulled them back and that as well. But you don't see it on the other side. So you've got one log that says it, another one that doesn't have that information recorded in it.
Absolutely. They're just flat out lying, making it up. And then in the incident log, you have an Officer Seabrook, 95. He's actually writing a speeding ticket at 10:15 a.m. on the official incident police log. But yet, when you read the police statement at 9:40, he's actually at the Sandy Hook Elementary School. How can he be in two places when the incident log is actually the official police log, which is sworn by Mike Kehoe?
Wow. Tell us about the janitor. There's some things that you found out about the janitor as well.
Well, it's the same thing with the janitors. They are supposed to be the ones that initiate, the work orders. And I cannot tell you, when you see these work orders, they're generated in September and October of 2012, and you look at it and it makes sense. But when they completed the assignment on May, June, July of 2013, why would you come into Sandy Hook and fix schools on projects that are broken when you know you're going to demolish the school? Why would you waste taxpayer money fixing a school that's about to be torn down?
Exactly. Tell us about the mold as well on the outside. You questioned about the mold.
David, that school, by far, if you look at, remember the witness, Barbara Sibley and Rob Sibley, who were on Katie Couric? Now, they talk about standing at the front entrance of the school. We have pictures that show the most filthiest, most deplorable looking school. It is actually a toxic waste dump, and it's not based on what I say, it's what's in the newspaper. Highest level of lead paint, highest level of asbestos, insulation, ceiling tile, floor tile. It has the highest level of PCP. The groundwater is contaminated around the school. And yet we have parents who would allow their children to attend that type of a school. I don't believe so. And if they did, then those parents are negligent for putting their children at risk, David.
Is there anything else you want to tell us about this particular FOIA hearing before we talk about the one that's coming up?
No, I just think we made, I had to fire my attorney. I gave him $10,000 to get me to the first hearing. I fired him a month before the hearing because I think he's in collusion with the other attorney. I think these people are working against me. So I hired a new attorney. I had her for 24 days when she had to go in front of the FOIA Commission. And David, she did a great job. And I think now we know how the game is played. I think now we have the evidence we can submit that we weren't allowed to submit to begin with because the other attorney objected. Now we know how they play the game, and we're going to play it better. And the other thing I want to share with you, the first time I was up there here for the first hearing, we actually caught Governor Dan Malloy telling the biggest lie that a governor could ever talk about Sandy Hook. If you remember, On the day of the shooting, he had his national press conference.